I'm decked out today in my standard 3-season hiking outfit, and today's topic is hiking headlamps, a term I also use interchangeably with headlights. And let's get right to the potentially most useful tip I will cover, the dual headlamp strategy. The reason I adopted the dual headlamp strategy is the stereoscopic effect of using two lights. It lets me see depth better. Particularly in the pre-dawn situation, I have a hard time perceiving depth, and this helps me enormously. Also, you have redundancy in case one headlamp goes bad. I remember meeting a hiker on a rim-to-rim hike whose light had gone bad in the night and he was using his cell phone to get to the top. I had not yet adopted the dual headlamp strategy, otherwise I would have given him one of mine. But it was a big lesson for me that sometimes lights do go bad. If you have one hiker with two lights, it's unlikely you'll have one go bad. If you have two or more hikers and each have two headlamps, there's almost zero chance of being stranded without a light. And when you think about it, there's a reason that automobiles have two headlights instead of one. You get both stereoscopic focus and redundancy. And we can follow the example of cars in our hiking. But probably fewer than 1 in 100 hikers I see use this dual headlamp strategy, although it's catching on more and more. The standard headlamp slips right onto a standard adjustable hiking belt. And in summer, I simply wrap it around my waist with a loose-fitting pair of shorts so I can have two headlights no matter what I'm wearing. Before we move on, let me speak for just a minute about headlamp courtesy. On the trails I hike, you always yield to uphill hikers, and I also yield the headlamps as well. If there's a trail runner coming, I'll just put my hand over the headlamp to shield their eyes. Sometimes within your own hiking group, you forget you're wearing a headlamp, and it's easy to blind them when you're speaking to them. So when you go on break, it makes sense to go to a red light so that you can still see what's going on, see the creatures that are out at night, but not blind the other people in your hike. The waist lamp has hardly any blinding effect at all. And I will often leave this on and just turn to the side of the trail when other people pass by. If necessary, I can cover it with my hand. And always, if you encounter a hiker who is not using a light at night, dim all of the lights. Now, why do I hike in the dark? I guess there are 4 S's that justify it: solitude, the stars, the sunrise, and safety. And for safety, the early start allows time for errors. If something goes wrong on the hike, at least you can still get to your destination, hopefully during the daylight. And I'll add one more S to that list: stories. For some reason, nighttime hikers have way more interesting stories. Maybe it's that there aren't many people out, or maybe the people who hike at night are just more interesting. When I started hiking, my goal was to start hiking at first light. But the more I hiked, the more I moved back in time. So from first light, I went to half an hour before the first light. And nowadays, I often hike 2 to 3 hours in the dark. And on a rim to rim to rim, I usually do about 5 hours in the dark, almost 40% of that hike. My goal on rim to rim to rims now is to start at 1 a.m. Early starts fit my personality, and I enjoy them. When I first started hiking at night, I started with these Eddie Bauer headlights, and they worked okay. The reason? Well, there's an Eddie Bauer outlet nearby, and they would send me a free $10 coupon. They'd say, come on by and shop. These headlamps cost about $10, so I was getting free headlamps from Eddie Bauer. I've only had one fail, and they work pretty well. After a while, with the single beam headlight, I tried a headlight with a wider beam, but it really offered me no advantage. After a while, I moved on to these coast headlamps. Available 2 for $20 at Costco. They have some pretty nice features. They have a focusable beam that can go from wide to narrow. They have 2 sets of switches, one for the white headlamp. The second switch is for a red or a slightly brighter green LED for use on brake situations or in camp. The switches are easy to tap, even if you're wearing gloves, and it's easy to find whether you're using the white beam or the colored beams. They have replaceable batteries. And when I do a hike with 5 hours in the dark, I bring along a second set of batteries just in case. I've never had to use them, but they're a good backup, and I can use them on the return rim-to-rim trip. A light comparable to the Costco model is still available from Coast. At one point, I decided I really would like a headlamp that could last both ways on a rim-to-rim-to-rim hike, and I started doing some research. The first thing I discovered was that runtime claims by headlamp manufacturers are a bunch of baloney. The Coast headlamp that I wear is rated at 17 hours, which is ridiculous. On high, I get less than 2 hours of good light, and on medium, I use 3 hours as a standard, although on rim-to-rim hikes, they get me through 5 hours, which includes some downtime on brakes, on yields to other hikers, and on red-only running. And on red, it could last virtually forever. I take the middle of the road on both lights using the middle setting of 3. I get up to 5 hours out of the headlight and well more than 5 hours out of the waist light. Gear Lab, which identifies itself as an independent tester of outdoor gear, did an interesting article basically accusing headlamp manufacturers of fraud in their advertising of the lights. Apparently, the industry decided on a standard of 10% effectiveness for light rating, but then later abandoned that and moved to an even more liberal standard, claiming that a light is working if it's as good as the moonlight. Here's a photo of a fresh light, a 10% light, and a light at the moonlight standard. The last example looks to me as if there's no light at all. Gear Lab also provided a chart of 2 lights' effective runtime, coming in at 5 hours, which is consistent with my experience. My takeaway from all of this is that you need to get a light and test it yourself to see if it meets your requirements. The advertised runtimes of the lights are not reliable. And let me know what your experience is in the comments, please. So personally, I decided that upgrading my lights would not do me too much good, and I continue to use my $10 headlamp and a waist lamp that I got for free but would normally cost about $10 as well. Finally, since I use replaceable batteries, battery life and power matter. I've researched the batteries and have settled on 2 for different purposes. I use Costco batteries, which cost about 34 cents each on standard hikes, and I use them for 2 hikes before I retire them. I use Rayovac Fusion Advanced Alkali on rim-to-rim-to-rim hikes. I find the Rayovacs are initially brighter than the Costco batteries and that they last longer. The Rayovac batteries cost about 78 cents each. Consumer Reports rated AA batteries. I use AAAs, but I figure the results apply just as well to the AAAs. Here are the results of those ratings, including the calculated cost of the batteries I have used or considered. To me, I get good value and performance from the Rayovacs and the Costco batteries. So, for a cheap guy like me, I get satisfactory headlamp performance from about $20 of equipment and batteries that cost from 34 cents to 78 cents each. I am always on the lookout for a better solution, so please let me know in the comments your strategies for nighttime hikes. And as always, thank you for watching.